ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So welcome to our Saturday morning session. And now today we shall continue to analyze some important segments of Vedic knowledge. So I think we will take up Purush Sukta. This is one of the very important sukta. It provides foundational knowledge which actually has been expanded greatly in Upanishads. So we will try to understand this to the extent possible. I would also like to mention very clearly that these suktas are so profound that it will not be easy for me to explain them uh, in adequate manner. But I will try my best to the extent possible. Whatever I know or I understand, I will try to do that. So let us go over to Purush Sukta. Now, before we go over to Purush Sukta, a few points need to be clarified. Pur means city and Se means the owner. Purush Sukta means owner of the cosmos. The cosmos is a city. It has all kinds of, according to modern science, galaxies and planets and variety of life. There is, lot of Akash, empty space all over, and all kinds of other forces, millions and trillions of stars. So all that is a city. It's called cosmos. But in Sanskrit, it's called Pur, and the owner of that Pur is Purush, that is Paramatma, the Supreme Lord. This has also been described in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 15, where Lord Krishna has called him Purushottam, that the best in the Purus. But that explanation is slightly different, but of course based on the foundational knowledge of Vedas. Now, second thing is we should understand the concept of Srasti and Srasta. Now, to translate Srasti as creation and Srasta as creator is not actually correct. The English word creator and creation implies that like a craftsman who makes, for example, somebody makes a pot. Now there's a material available. The potter makes the pot. The pot is separate and the potter is separate. That is what the concept is. So in the Western concept of creation and creator, the creator is sitting somewhere, else, and the creation is right here, this world. So he created this world and he's not part of the world. He lives somewhere else. So that is not the concept of Srasti and Srasta. Srasti and Srasta basically means that the Srasta expanded himself in such a way that he expounded or manifested Srasti in his own being. So the Srasti is part of Srasta. It is not separate from Srasta. It's like a dancer and the dance. Now the dance cannot be separated from the dancer. When the dancer is dancing, the dance continues with the dancer. You cannot make them, separately. You can't present them without the dancer. The dance has to come with the dancer. Exactly the same way, the Srasti comes with the Srasta. So that implies that in every single particle of the Srasti, Srasta is there. Without his presence, the Srasti cannot exist. Like without the presence of a dancer, the dance cannot exist. So this separation is not correct. In Hindu philosophy, Srasta and Srasti are intertwined, intrinsically linked. Like The voice I am talking with, now that voice is intrinsically linked with me and my life. My life and my voice cannot be separated. They are part of the same existence. Similarly, Srasta and Srishti cannot be separated. They are part of the same existence, and the Srishti is merely an expansion or manifestation of Srasta in the physical existence. So, this is another thing which we must be very clear about. Then we should also understand two other words, that is karma and yajna. I think this has been profoundly explained in chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita and also subsequently. Now, when you do a karma, you get outcome of that karma, you get the result of that karma. There is no karma which will not give you an outcome, except for those karma which have been converted into yajna. Now, what is that yajna? This word yajna is very profound word. Yajna is the word which basically means that you are doing certain karma which are totally dedicated to the Supreme. You as Karta is not in existence there. So the doer is not in existence, and the entire action has been dedicated to the Supreme. And that kind of karma becomes yajna. In that situation, the karma does not give you an outcome or a result. You do not get what you call, reward or punishment for that kind of karma. So that karma and yajna we must understand here. And the profound lesson of Bhagavad Gita is that we should convert our karma into yajna so that we can destroy the seed of our rebirth. Then we will not be born again in this world, and we will be eternally liberated, and we will go into the union of the Supreme and attain supreme bliss all the time. So that is the difference between karma and yajna. Then connected with this are three words which we should understand before we go into this sutta. The first is sankalp, then shraddha, and then samarpan. You see, sankalp is a positive force in ourself which enables us to do certain activities which are not normally done. Like somebody wants to do fasting for 7 days or 10 days. Now, everybody will feel hungry, everybody will have that, desire to have food, and it becomes very difficult to observe fast for so many days. So, if you have that positive force of sankalp, then you can overcome that desire. You can, you are not fighting against that desire, but you are able to overcome that desire with your positive energy, with your positive force which comes into play. So, sankalp is that positive force which enables you to exercise or to transcend actually over the normal functioning of our sense organs or desires. We don't fight them, we don't control them, but we overcome them through the power of, sankalp. That power of sankalp turns into a positive force, like we do in case of, for example, 10 day of fasting, or you want to, like a soldier on the border. He, some of the soldiers develop this sankalp at the end that I have to defeat my enemy. And that sankalp enables him to get that extra power. Like Maharana Pratap or Maharana Sangha or Shivaji, they had that sankalp, the force which enabled them to overcome some of the greatest, powerful enemies in the history of India. So that is the sankalp. Now, sankalp is a force which can be used for something positive or something negative. Using the force of sankalp, you can kill somebody or you can also save somebody. Now, how do you convert that into a positive force? It's already a positive force, but then its use can be negative or positive. Now, through Shraddha, Shraddha means you have trust in the divine force, in the supreme force. If you have that Shraddha, then this sankalp can be converted into samarpan. Now, samarpan is the most important act which we can perform ever in our life. And only those people who are brave, who have enormous power of sankalp, only those people can surrender themselves to the Supreme. Now, total surrender to the Supreme is not very easy because the ego comes into play, yourself comes into play, and therefore it is not that easy that people say, oh, I have surrendered to the God. It's saying is not the same thing. Leaving everything to Him is not easy, not for anyone else. It's like being a child. The child leaves everything to the mother. If he feels hungry, then he cries. Mother takes care of him. The child doesn't perform any act. He just natural things happen in his body, and he's taken care of. Similarly, we have to turn like a child when we become, we have that force of sankalp. Then we have to become like a child and surrender completely to the Supreme. So that is samarpan. Now, that is not very easy, but we will continue with that in our course of analyzing this sukta. Now, let's go into, there are total of 16 mantras in this sukta. Uh, some say that originally there were 15 and the 16th was added, but that is not material for us. We will analyze the 16 mantras, but it will not be possible to do so today alone. It will take time because each sukta is very profound, very deep, and we will go into some of the aspects which I will try my best to explain. As I told you, I don't think I'll be able to explain them fully, but I will do my best, whatever I can. So, Purush Sukta is, as I mentioned, it's part of Rig Veda. And we also discussed what is Sukta. Sukta is a collection of mantras which are dedicated to one particular deity or divine force. So this sukta is actually, dedicated to Lord Vishnu, or the Creator Himself, the Supreme Being, and it appears in a 10th mandala. In as we discussed in Veda, there in Rig Veda there are mandalas, so it appears in the 10th mandal, and there are 16 mantras in this sukta. Now, the first mantra is like this in English. The Purusa has thousands of heads, thousands of eyes, thousands of feet. He pervades all over the land, entire cosmos, and beyond. Now, this is the first mantra. This actually explains very clearly. This number thousands is only symbolic. It means basically infinite, that he has infinite number of heads, infinite number of feet, infinite number of heads and eyes, and he pervades the entire cosmos. Now, this is precisely what the first verse of Isa Vashya Upanishad says, Isa Vashyam Idam Sarvam. This is exactly the meaning here, that the Supreme Lord pervades the entire cosmos. He is everywhere. This was also explained in Bhagavad Gita when Lord Krishna said that जैसे बर्फ पानी से परिपूर्ण है, उसी तरह से यह संसार मेरे से परिपूर्ण है. Exactly the same thing. There is nothing else in ice except water. Similarly, in this universe, there is nothing else except the Supreme Lord Himself. So He is pervading everywhere. That is why He is called cosmic being. This is the fundamental truth of all the Vedic knowledge, and this has been expounded in variety of ways in variety of Upanishads. But this Sukta's first mantra clarifies it in every aspect that he is pervading everywhere. He has infinite number of heads and eyes and feet and hands, and he is everywhere. So this is what it means. Now it is not easy for us to accept that Supreme is everywhere, because then the question arises, why do we commit evil? What is this evil force? If Supreme is everywhere, why people commit evil? Now that is a question which has been debated over in the modern era in variety of ways. There are books written on it. Why evil? Because most religions believe that the world was created by the Supreme. They use the word created in our Granth, in our Shastras. We always read that it is not the creator and creation is not separate, as I explained. It is the creator which is reflected in every creation. It's like the dancer and the dance. There's no dance without the dancer. Similarly, there's no srishti without the srishta. So even other religions accept that the Supreme Lord created this universe. They don't say that He is everywhere, but created. So if it is created by the Supreme Lord, why there is evil? And then they explain there is a Satan, there is a variety of ways, but all those explanations are not very profound. In Bhagavad Gita, the explanation given by Lord Krishna that it is the Prakriti, the three gunas of the Prakriti, Sat, Raj, and Tam, they are responsible for the evil in the world. They have the qualities which impact the human behavior depending on the prominence of one particular guna in human personality. So that is a separate topic. We are not going into that today. But the fact is that the entire cosmos is actually pervaded by the Supreme Lord, which is what this first mantra says. Now let's go to the second mantra. All this manifestation is Purus alone. Now this is very clear. All this manifestation is Purus alone. Whatever was and whatever will be in the future, whatever was in the past, whatever will be in the future, the whole existence is woven by the immortal essence of the Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord is Purus. So the entire universe, whatever existed in the past, whenever and whatever will exist in the future, is all woven by the Purus, by the Supreme Lord. By surrendering to whom one transcends the gross world. Now, by surrendering to whom, now that samarpan comes into play here. If we accept this reality that the entire creation is reflection of the Supreme Lord, He is pervading everything here, and we are just like a puppet in His hands. If we surrender ourselves to Him, if we overcome our ego, then you transcend the gross world. Then you are able to transcend this world and become one with the Supreme. Now, this is another great truth which has been expanded and explained, that by transcending this world, You will be united with the Supreme, you will be liberated. The word which have been used, moksha and nirvana, is for this, that you transcend this gross world through total surrender to the Supreme. And therefore, the value of surrender is very important. And we have to subdue the doership, that I am the doer. You have to subdue the ego, that I am somewhere here and there. Now, the ego is very, very, sublime. It's very, subtle in its expression. Small things hurt each one of us. And that is the reflection of ego. When we transcend beyond ego, then the outer world will not impact on us, either for giving happiness or for giving unhappiness. We will be happy or unhappy because of our inner world. Then the outer world's impact on us will be neutralized completely. If somebody is praising me, I will not be elated. If somebody is criticizing me, I will not be angry. That impact will be completely neutralized. And that is possible only when you surrender to the Supreme Lord, who is in every single manifestation of this universe. So these are the two important aspects of this sukta, the first two mantras. Now let's go to the third mantra. This vast and great cosmos is his manifestation. This vast cosmos, which we can't even understand how big it is, despite all the modern science and equipment which we have, all the telescopes and all kinds of scientific instruments we have developed, we are not able to determine the vastness of this universe, how big it is. Nobody knows about it. They talk about trillions of galaxies. Each galaxy is having billions of solar systems. Each solar system having so many planets and satellites. So all this is running into beyond trillions and trillions. That is what modern science says. But our Shastras always said that it is infinite. It is aseem. It cannot be actually assessed by our mental capacity, because the mental capacity we have is limited. It is it has its own boundaries, but with the boundaries we cannot assess the things which has no boundaries, without boundaries. So that is why what modern science is discovering today actually proves what our ancestors had written thousands of years back in time. If I recall, in 18th century, Galileo, when he told that the Earth moves around the sun, he was put in the prison and he was not allowed to speak. He spent a miserable life because what he spoke was against the Bible. The Bible said that Earth is the center of the universe and the sun revolves around it. He went the other way around. He says, sun is the center of this system, solar system, and Earth revolves around it. And therefore he was punished. So this is what our limitation is. Then that time they also believed that the Jesus Christ created this world 4,000 years before his birth. So according to them, this whole world universe is only about 6,000 years old. And that is why whatever interpretation of history they gave was given based on that. That's why they said Vedas were written approximately 1500 BC. because the world itself was created, 4,000 years before Christ. That means that time nothing could have existed. So that is their limitation in interpretation. But now the same science is accepting, which is actually reflected in our Shastras long back, that the earth is more than 4 billion years old. And we have been talking about this concept, what we call one day of Brahma or one yug, that is called yug, which has been assigned to be 4.32 billion years. So, according to our Shastras, this solar system is 4.32 billion years old, and it revolves in those cycles. While the the Western people did not believe in this, but now they're coming around that idea. So, whatever has been said in Vedas thousands of years back in time is being proved by the modern science in one way or the other. So this is also there, that the vast and great cosmos and his manifestation, this vast and great cosmos is his manifestation. It is the Supreme Lord which manifested himself. That is the concept of Srasta converting himself into Srasti. Now, yet greater still is the Purusa than the greatness of this cosmos. But the Purusha, the Supreme Lord, is greater than this cosmos. This cosmos is only a small manifestation of his energy, very small manifestation. Now, in Bhagavad Gita, also Lord Krishna has said that with a very small fraction of my energy, I have created this whole cosmos. Exactly the same thing has been mentioned here in Vedas, that this entire manifestation, this whole world of objects which we see around us, whether these are stars and galaxies and the mountains and the rivers and the earth and whatever we see, the human beings and variety of species of life, all that has come out of a fraction of the energy of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is much, much greater than that. Now, here they have given that one quarter of his energy has become this manifested material world, and the three quarters constitute the immortal world of transcendence. Now, this is the ratio which has been given here, but this ratio has been explained in different ways in different writings. Like in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna said that only a small fraction of my energy has been manifested in the form of this universe, and a large part of my energy is not actually manifested here. But here they have given a proportion. It doesn't matter. The fact is that the Supreme Lord is much greater than the whole universe, manifested universe, which we see around us, with all the trillions of stars and galaxies and planets and the variety of life and billions of human beings on Earth alone. Maybe on other planets there is life. Maybe there is trillions of life underwater, fish and other variety of life, marine life. The pakshi that is in the what we call butcher, Thulcher and Catcher. Now, Catcher is the birds which are flying. We see in the monsoon season, all types of life emerge, and we see all kinds of insects on the earth. That all this manifestation is only a small fraction of the energy of the Lord. This is what this mantra is saying. So, this shows that the energy of the Lord is many, many times more than what we see in the universe, the manifestation, the physical manifestation. So, this is the third point in this third mantra which has been clarified. In the first mantra, it was very clear that whole universe is nothing but reflection or expansion of the Supreme Lord. In the second, the emphasis that by surrendering to the Lord, you transcend the gross world and you become one with Him. And in this mantra, the emphasis is that the Supreme Lord is far greater than the manifest world which we see around us. So this is how these mantras are proceeding. Now let us take the next one, the fourth mantra. The three quarters of the Supreme Lord represents the higher illuminated transcendental realm. Now, teen path, this is the Sanskrit word teen path of the Lord. Now, those three quarters of the Lord that forms a different transcendental universe. Now, that is beyond our conception, beyond our perception. Nobody knows what is that, but the Vedas are describing that the three quarter, what we see whole of this universe is only one quarter of the Supreme's energy. The three quarters is what we call in Gita, what has been described as Parampad, that the supreme, place where we go after our liberation. That is called transcendental real. That is where the transcendental realm or Parampad is there. And that is constituted of the three quarters of the energy of the Supreme. This is what this verse is saying here. While the one quarter of keep manifesting the entire cosmos again and again. Now, this is very important. The one quarter of the Supreme's energy keep manifesting this universe again and again. Now, this is implying the concept of yugaj. This implies the day of Brahma and night of Brahma. That during the day of Brahma, the cosmos appears and it stays for 4.32 billion years. In the night of Brahma, the cosmos dissolves into Brahma and it remains dissolved for 4.32 billion years. And then again, when the day of Brahma appears, the cosmos appears again and runs again for 4.32 billion years. This is the what we call theory of yoga, which has been explained in great detail. We have also discussed that. So I'm not going into the specific details, but it has been explained from atomic time. That is 15 by, 8 by 13,500 of a second. 8 by 13,500 of a second is the atomic time defined in Bhagavad Puran. And then they have expanded that atomic time into an hour and a day and what we call a tithi, and then finally it goes into 15 days, that 15 din, and then it goes to a month, and then it goes to a year, and then further goes up and ultimately in a day of Brahma. So there's a very detailed explanation given of this entire concept of time in Bhagavad Puran. We have discussed that separately. So they define from atomic time right up to the day of Brahma. And the life of Brahma is 100 years. Now in that 100 years, how many times this universe get dissolved and get reappeared, we can calculate that. It's not that difficult because every single day it appears and every night it disappears. So in 100 years, how many days and how many nights will be there, we can calculate, and we can say in one Brahma's lifetime, so many times the universe appeared and so many times universe was dissolved. So this is the whole concept which has been, it is basically a timeless thing. This calculation of time, 100 years of Brahma's life, runs into 311 trillion and 4 billion years. 311 trillion and 4 billion years. Can we imagine that? That if we write in numericals, it will take a long time to write. I don't know how many zeros we will have to put in 311 trillions and 4 billion years. So the whole idea is that here they are explaining that the one quarter, one fourth of Supreme's energy keep manifesting in this cosmos again and again because it dissolves and then again appears, dissolves and again appears. This whole process continues. Hmm? There in the cosmos, he pervades all the living and all the non-living beings. That is, Jad and Chetan. Chetan is living beings and Jad is non-living beings. Or we can say those who eat and those who do not eat. Like all the living beings eat. So the word here which have been used in the Vedic language is those which are eating and those which are not eating. All those living and non-living beings in the cosmos, they are pervaded by the Supreme Lord. So here there's another concept here which was explained again in chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita, that I have two Shakti, that is Parashakti and Aparashakti. Aparashakti is manifesting in eight forces. Those are Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal, Prithvi, Man, Buddhi or Ahankar. These are the eight forces which arise from Aparashakti of the Supreme. So that is the natural forces. All this natural universe is covered there. And Parashakti is the force which provides life force. So here also actually the Vedic foundational knowledge, it clarifies very abundantly here that this cosmos is pervaded. All the being in this cosmos, whether they are living being and non-living being, they are pervaded by the Supreme Lord. So the nature is also arising from that Supreme Lord, and the living beings are also arising from there. This is the same as explained by Lord Krishna in chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita. So this is very clear that even non-living being, that means this earth, the mountains, the rivers, the akash, and what we call jad, which are not moving and which are not eating, all those forces which are there in this universe, they also arise from the Supreme Lord and from His energy. So this is what has been explained here. Now we'll take one more sukta, one more mantra today, that is mantra number 5. From the Supreme Lord was born the divine Purush, Adi Purush, with the Supreme Lord constituting the substratum. The divine Purush then manifested his own being as substratum and created the earth, all the diversity, the surrounding system, and all beings. Now, this is very, very profound again. This Adi Purus, divine force, is reference to what we call in our normal parlance Brahma. That Brahma se Brahma ki utpatti hui. Now, here he says that Supreme Lord was born as divine force, that he was born as Brahma, or he gave birth to Brahma. That is called Adi Purus in Vedic language. And that Purus, that Brahma or that power, whatever name you give, but that is the power which actually created or expanded in the form of this universe. Now, this already becomes three layers here. One is the Supreme Lord at the base of everything. Then the Adipurus, which is Brahma in this case, that is the second layer. And third layer is the manifest universe, which comes out of the forces of Brahma. So this is now expanding further. That in the process of srasti, in the process of making this srasti, the Supreme Lord first created Adipurus. He created a divine force, which we refer, as I mentioned, in the name of Brahma. Brahma is the supreme force. Brahma is the Sanskrit word, which comes from the Sanskrit root Briya. Briya means any force which can expand infinitely. And that is what Brahma means, a force which can expand infinitely. Brahma can also expand infinitely, but certain limitations, that is the 100 years of age. And within that 100 years, what he can do, which we have discussed, that 311 trillion and 4 billion years of human, years life. In that, every single day, he manifests this universe, and the universe is dissolved into him again at the end of the day. So this process of dissolution and appearance and dissolution, it's a continuous process, which has been explained in the previous verse, previous mantra, that the entire cosmos keeps manifesting again and again, in this process. And in this mantra, he has introduced the concept of Adipurus, that there is a force which has been created to manifest this universe. This universe is manifested by this force Adipurus which has been created. So the divine Purus then manifests its own being as substratum. That the divine Purus which is created, Adipurus, he expands himself to manifest this universe again and again. And all the diversity, whether it is Earth and galaxies and stars and all the systems which are in existence in this universe in variety of forms, all those systems are created through this process. So now we can see how this universe has come into being. No modern science has reached to that point till date. This once the modern science makes further progress, which will happen maybe after our lifetime or maybe sometime, then they will find that this is exactly true. What has been explained in this Purush Sukta is precisely true. And other things which have been explained in Vedic knowledge have already been proven correct by the modern science, as I explained earlier. But when we go further down on these suktas, we will, go into some of these details again to expound on the knowledge contained in this great scripture. So I will conclude here today, because this sukta is very, very profound sukta. We will continue on this on our next session. It has, some people say 15, but it has actually 16 mantras. We don't go into that debate whether 15 is correct or 16 is correct. But 16 mantras, each of the mantras is a potent force in itself. It's the great foundation of the science. The greatest revelation which we can imagine in this universe is explained in each one of these mantras. So thank you very much. And I will try to answer if there's any query on this issue. Thank you.